And we are live. Here we go.
Finally.
Hey,
All right.
sorry about that. We'll just pick right off, right where we left off.
Yeah, man.
Apologize for that.
We were just talking about baseball, like that's how we met. That's how we met, and
Right.
I was talking. I got cut off from you, but I was talking about hitting and how for me baseball became like baseball hitting especially became like an addiction, and I think that the term getting a hit is like so appropriate. Because it'll drive you mad the longer you do it. The longer you go about kind of pursuing this really difficult mastery, and that's why you see, like when you were saying, I was really stubborn. I think that you have to believe like in the impossible to be good in that game. And so, yeah, stubborn, sure. I think more like kind of boundless drive and unsure of where to point it is I would describe you as a kid. Like you didn't know, you're trying to figure out where you wanted to point all that fire and like attack in that place. And so was it baseball? Was it other stuff? There was not a clear direction. And, I think that when we're kids and they ask us to like, hey, you're going to choose what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 and all you care about is girls and hitting, like it's a tough place in life. So you weren't any different than anybody else. You're just, crazier and smiling more often. You think you were stubborn, but I just remember you laughing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I was growing into my body, finding my way as everybody else was. I'd like to I'm seeing a hypnotist, and she's walking me through years of my life when I was younger. Growing in from 8 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 18, 18 to 21, 21, all that. And we're just going through the years, and it's interesting to really look back on how my mindset has changed and developed through certain periods of my life where, it's just, everybody goes through their developmental stages where, you're Little League. A lot of it was baseball and sports oriented. That's just who I was. It's who I identified myself with, whether it was, always getting ready for some type of sport, Little League, basketball, football. And then in between, I became obsessed my freshman year when Jock's dad, Stu, kind of took me aside and definitely mentored me and really took me in and just really worked with me and explained the importance of hard work and diligence and staying consistent with that and becoming really, really obsessed with your craft. And then, at 14 years old, that really molded me in to just staying consistent with that hard work and being really the fear of being outworked. But that's what led into college where, 17, 18, 19 years old, where, you're around people that work just as hard as you and that can be, physically more talented than you as well. So that was maybe a little bit of an adjustment for me. And then on top of that.
Yeah. You think going to college is a little bit of an adjustment?
Yeah.
Let's stop there for a second. If you're going back in time and you're looking at the years of your life, I think it's really important to consider kind of like the science that relates to what's happening at that time. I'll give you an example. There's a book by Robert Sapolsky, who's a Stanford professor, and the book is called Behave, and it's about why human beings do and act the way that we do, from good to bad, and from like a micro scale to a macro scale, and on a huge time horizon, from what happened a second ago in our brain before we made a decision to our evolutionary heritage. Point is, there in the Sierra Nevada foothills, there's this cave. And you walk down this cave, and it kind of goes at a slope. It declines down to get to the bottom, and then at the end of the cave, it's pitch black, and there's like 150-foot drop that you can't see. Can't see the drop. Well, down there, and they went down, and they found out there was a bunch of bones at the bottom. And what they found is that over hundreds of years, all of the bones belonged to adolescent males, late adolescent males. And the point of that story was to explain to the reader of the book that when you are like 18 to or 16 to 22 as a male, you will never in your life make worse decisions than you do then. Like that is when we are at our absolute worst. The other one that explains this too is like the greatest deterrent to jail is a 30th birthday. If it hasn't happened before 30, there's a very low chance of it happening after 30. So it's in these formative years where we're trying to find ourselves. And sometimes I think that society doesn't necessarily help us look in the right place. It points us against each other, and I got to get the best grade so I can get this job, so I can join this thing, and I can do it. It doesn't tell us about like, hey man, like what do you like to do? What makes you happy?
Yeah.
What do you want to be inside or do you want to be outside? Do you like to build things, or to me, it's amazing that that's not part of how we do it personally, how I raise my children. They go to Montessori school. They kind of learn in a different method than most regular school kids. But, pointing out like those things, man, it's really important, I think, for you to just kind of understand where your brain was at those times. Like the human brain, the executive function isn't fully like developed until I think we're about 27 or 28. That's when the prefrontal cortex finishes its development, because you need experience to get there. So your brain isn't even fully ready to do anything until it's 27 or 28, And so I think about that, and I think about how much I felt like I had figured out when I was 14 or 15. I knew it all, thought I knew it all. I thought I was a genius, such an idiot.
No, well, we all looked up to you. We did. A lot of us did. And, some people mature. That's actually one of the things I put into the show notes is you were valedictorian at De La Salle, weren't you?
Salutatorian.
So what is
Second.
Okay.
I got a B. I got one B.
That's
got a B in AP calculus.
That's a very good school. To the people out there that don't know, De La Salle had the longest. When it was widely known for their football team, right? Weren't they on the cover of Sports?
Yeah, when the Game Stands Tall is a movie about that high school. You were talking about Jock's dad and instilling hard work, and at De La Salle, from the time I was 14 years old, like their whole mission statement there, like the reason that they were good was built on the premise that they were willing to push themselves further and hold each other accountable. The coaches didn't need to do anything there. It was almost like a bit of brainwashing, and it was amazing how it worked. We would ask to run more in full pads. We would ask for more work. We would get there early and do work on our own without any prompting. That was the culture that had been instilled there for years. And when you got to that school, you expected to win everything. And you knew that the reason that you were going to win is because you were willing to do the work that the other people were not willing to do. You knew the public high school across the street, Hnilo Valley High School, they weren't going to be there. I can remember being a junior and senior in high school and showing up to the high school at 6:00 in the morning to pull tires, and having my entire varsity team and half the JV team be there and no coaches in baseball. Like, that's just what the environment was like. There was like overworking was the overworking was
the norm.
It's just normal. That was normal. There's nothing else there. That's why they've been so successful. They've been successful like that for 30 years. The second part of those, the team accountability. When they had you at De La Salle, with football especially, when they had the guys write out goals, the goals were not about their own individual performance. The goals were how they were going to help somebody else on their team reach some sort of significant milestone. So the offensive line was talking about the running backs. The running back was talking about the offensive line. Everybody was talking about, how can I make you look good? It's a basic.
Freshman, sophomore, that was instilled at an early age at that school, huh?
Oh yeah, and so I just worked, and that's my story. My story is not very complicated. I was a pretty good athlete, not the best by any means. I had a good throwing arm because I played a lot of baseball as a kid, but I was just willing to practice more than everybody else for years. Not for like, oh, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna, and then it stops after a couple of weeks. No, I practiced too much until the day I stopped playing baseball, and I had to find something else to practice after that, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, I like practicing. I like practicing because, baseball is the kind of game, and I've always said this, you have to be born pretty tall to play in the NBA. And so, like, there's a limited amount of the population that can get there. You can't work hard and be 7 feet tall. You can work hard and be like Isaiah Thomas or something and be a great NBA player, or Steph Curry, who's 6'3", by the way, and be a great NBA player. But you can't you can't work hard and just be league average. You can't work hard and be league average in the NFL. Those guys that are 350 pounds that can run like that, that's not necessarily just hard work that got them there. That's being born like that. But baseball is the one game. Baseball and golf, I think that's why you can play golf until you're so old. But baseball is the one kind of the three major sports that you can really see when you watch a major league game. You can see not the best athletes as the best players. Because it's a less explosive game, it's a less athletic game, but hitting is really difficult. And the way that you get better at hitting is practicing a lot. And so if you like to practice, shoot, you and I know, even when we see each other now, we still go and hit in the cage, because that's just like, there's not even a reason for it anymore, but we're going to do it together when we hang out because it's fun. I mean, we hit, I'll never forget you and me. How cool is it when we hit before the game at the cage in Wrigley?
Oh, in Wrigley?
Yeah.
That's to this day, that's one of the best moments of my life. Yeah.
And
it didn't rain out the night before, so we were able to hit on the field. Maybe some other time.
Some other time we'll get on the field, but that was
you're absolutely right though. It's just repetition. But for me, it was just something about yourself is just you maintain that even keel. You always had a funny little. You weren't too moody. Even 0 for 4, 2 punch outs. You were the same dude after the game. We didn't have to be walk on eggshells around you, and that's something to be said about your confidence at an early age. And you're 20, 21 years old, and if I had a bad game, it would ruin the rest of my evening and how I spoke with my family and stuff like that. So being able to keep the highs low and the lows high, so to speak, and keep that consistent mindset throughout, man. I mean, especially with you playing 162 games throughout a season and having, especially towards the end of your career when you would get put in. I mean, I would always wonder about that situation with you as a backup catcher and then going in, getting your timing right and then still doing pretty well.
It's tough.
That's got to be so tough going in, seeing a guy, facing an ace, throwing 95 with a cut, and then still, with your time, you haven't seen a pitcher, 6 days or something like that, but you go in just to give a guy a day off. That's got to be the toughest job in baseball, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to hit like that, but at the same time, it's a job in baseball. So, I think people probably would never understand unless they've ever tried to do that, how difficult it is to compete against the best in the world infrequently in a game that is really dependent. Your success a lot of the times is really dependent on your timing, like you're talking about, and your vision. So if you don't have a lot of experience, it's hard to do it well. But at the same time, man, I liked to my philosophy has always been when it comes to competition, show me who the best person is at this, who's the best competition that we can face, and then I just want to try, because the way that sports work over a long period of time is it's this kind of feedback loop where you practice. You train your body to get it into a certain place so that you can repeat all the things that you practiced. And then you go out in baseball and you test it. And then you assess it when you're done. And then you go back out the next day and maybe you tweak your practice a little bit so that you can shore up a hole or add something new, perhaps when you have a longer period of time to do it. But then you just go back out and compete again. So to me, that's I want to address the backup catching stuff like that. That was great. You have to do everything. You have to catch all of the bullpens that the guys throw when they're not pitching so that you stay sharp defensively. You have to watch the game very closely because there's a chance that you might end up in that game. And if you haven't watched how the game has been called or how the guys have been pitched, you could pretty easily walk into a disaster there. So you have to be turned on. And I think that's the thing where, backup catching is hard. It's hard to be successful offensively. And if you look at any backup catcher in the history of baseball, there wasn't a ton that had a lot of offensive success. It's more important the other things that people don't understand, that you don't see, about making sure that if you are inserted into that game, you're not a drop-off defensively or game calling wise or defensive management wise, because you have to look at the field and know where people are supposed to play. So there's a whole lot more of a kind of quarterbacking mentality that goes into baseball. And I think that when you're a catcher like I was when you met me, you have to be even keel, because you're at bat. If that's what you're focused on, you're not in the present moment anymore. And in the present moment, you need to know what pitch to call, where to go, if the shortstop's playing in the right place, what play the coach might want to put on. what we threw this guy the last time that he was up. Like there's all of these, what the scouting report says, how he's done his last 20 at bats,
Right.
what he looks like against cut. Like I have all those things in my head. There's no space for me to ruminate on something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
There's no space for it because you're on to the next one. It's very similar, honestly, to when we were talking about De La Salle and the collaboration as a team versus competition amongst the team. It's yes and, yes, this happened and now this is happening. And so what? That happened. Now what are we going to do? Because it's constantly forcing you to look into take what you know from the past and learn from it and look immediately into the present. So if you're not willing to sacrifice the highs, then you're going to experience the same level of lows because it kind of balances itself all out anyway. So I chose to just ride the middle as much as I could. I went up and down like everybody else. I have frustrations. I cried in bathrooms in professional baseball. Like I've been in those kind of places before. I remember almost quitting the year that I got called up, like 2 days before I got called up to the big leagues, because I had I had this meeting with my manager, and he said, "Hey, we want to tell you that I got good news and I got bad news." He's like, "The good news is you got selected to play in the All-Star game again for the PCL, which is AAA, so the next level closest to the big leagues. And it was going to be my second time playing in the All-Star game in 3 years without playing in the major leagues." And so, hey, we did that. But the bad news is, hey, the Marlins, who I was playing with at the time, they sent down a catcher from the big leagues, and they called up the other guy on my team. And then they told me that I wasn't going to play for like the next 2 weeks, even though I was the best catcher in the league at the time. So imagine being the best. Finally, I'm the best player on my team finally, and I'm not even good enough in the organization's mind to play. And so we were in Texas, and I was just laying in the bullpen during the game complaining about it. And a right-handed pitcher that we had named Scott Nestor kind of snapped me back into reality. He's like, "Dude, you're really good. You're going to end up in the big league somewhere. You need to clean it up." He was having a tough year, and he was younger than me, but with some sage advice. And 2 days later, somebody got hurt in the big leagues, and I was in the big leagues, and then I was back in the minor leagues, I think 6 years after that. So from 2 days, yeah, I mean, it'll definitely, the more you do something like that, the more of your time that you invest into something, and the more that you feel like you should see a positive return from it, the further you go without that positive return, the harder it is to stay on that course. Like you'll find any possible avenue out, and you get somebody like me who likes competition, likes being in the moment, wants to play in the big leagues, like actually thinking about at that time, 10 years ago now, sitting in Austin, Texas, being like, I'm done. This stinks. Like I'm never going to play in the big leagues if this version of me they don't want to call it this version of me, because this is the best version of me that there's ever been. I don't know that I could play better than I was playing that year. And, fortunately for me, I didn't. I got talked out of it. And 2 days later, I was making my debut in San Diego.
And then 2 days after that, I'm watching you homer off Chan Ho Park, right?
Chan Ho Park, yeah.
That's awesome.
Chan Ho Park in Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, I was there. So yeah, if you could just give a little background on where the different, just how you transformed and like just how you changed and how the ups and downs, peaks and valleys from minor league baseball throughout the major leagues to where you are now, how things have changed, and then to ultimately lead to where you are now, to creating your own position for the former world champion Chicago Cubs, and to how that really got you into mindfulness and being, to where you are with leading meditation groups and to where you are now.
Well, so I played, and then I played and 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 I played. All of a sudden, there was just no chance for me to play anymore. I didn't retire. No one was going to let me bat. In professional baseball, I was going to force my kids to go to the Atlantic League and independent baseball and try to wait for 9 people to get hurt. But yeah, I spent 7 years in the minor leagues, grinding it out. Some of the best times of my life. Some of the closest friendships I've ever made were when you're making $1,000 a month for 5 months and you're working full time in the off season and you're chasing your dreams. Like you're putting yourself on the line for something that you love, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to, like I said, they'll give themselves ways to hop off of that and do something else really quickly. And it feels good, I think, to like really strive. And that's the thing that I really get from my experience at the minor leagues. There's lots of ups and downs. There's lots of mechanical changes, and there's lots of games that I played in, obviously, but it's this kind of self-discovery of how you need to think and how you need to act. And growing up, but being able to grow up slow. I always looked at it like that. I didn't have to grow up like everybody else. You know, you're playing the same game you were playing when you were 5, but you're playing it every day with your friends all the time. That's why sports were so addictive to me. So, you know, I'm in that environment, and then all of a sudden one day they're like, yeah, you know, we don't have a spot for you anymore, so you're gonna have to move on. And it was actually kind of relieving for me. I drove away from the field that day, picked up my family, spent like a week in Seattle, and then we made the drive down I-5 to the Bay Area where we were living at the time, and I was really happy. You know, it was like I felt like a burden had been lifted, you know, because it wasn't my decision. I didn't say, you know, today I'm gonna retire from baseball. It was baseball retired me. They didn't give me a jersey, and from that moment forward, I stayed in shape for a couple of weeks to see if anybody called. Nobody enticing at all called, and then I just stopped hitting and I put my bat down. And honestly, from that point on, I never think about it ever anymore. It's completely gone out of my mind, and I think that's where the mindfulness comes in. You know, I recognize when I was done playing professional sports. I mean, I was 35 years old. It had been baseball. I'd been playing baseball for the last 3 decades consistently. And so I knew that there was going to be a hole. I knew that there was going to be a big void in my life. And there was. You know, I got home and I'm beating my 4-year-old in tic-tac-toe over and over again. You know, and I'm challenging people to any sort of game that we can play, from like horse with the trash can and paper to like, you want to play Monopoly? Let's play Clue. Want to play Pictionary? Like what? I needed to compete, right? I needed to compete, and I needed it. I didn't have it anymore. And in professional sports too, you know, you don't realize this, but yes, we're competing on the field, but there's so much kind of internal team competition going on all the time. In that environment, you have all these guys that are so competitive that it's card games in the minor leagues for fun, and it's card games in the big leagues for money. It's competing in the weight room. It's competing in the cage. It's competing all the time. Well, that was gone. And I replaced that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because every day you go to practice and you compete, and sometimes you get like staph infection on the whole right side of your face. Sometimes that happens.
Gout, right?
Yeah, gout, whatever I have, I don't know. Just poisoned myself with a mat. But it filled the void, you know, and it gave me that thing. And then I also realized too, and this is an important one, and I don't know how many people have ever thought about this concept of stress like this, but I didn't have enough stress. You know, playing in front of 50,000 people, like physiologically, like you reach a state of like anxiety. You get in fight or flight sometimes, right? You reach this state of really highly alert, and you have to learn how to manage it to successfully play. But that's not the point of this. It's that I was so used to this high level of stress, and then that was gone, completely gone. I was never nervous. I was never worried about anything. And what I've learned about the human mind and doing the job that I do now is that in the absence of real physical stress, we will create it in our own head. That's what we do. You know, we evolved as people that were supposed to be freaked out when they heard rustling in the bushes because it might be a tiger or something. And now we live in a time where it's the safest time to be alive in the history of the world. We've never had better access to food or medicine. But if you look at the psychological data, anxiety and depression are just steadily climbing. They're steadily climbing. And I think it's because people haven't necessarily attempted to go out and find that kind of real physical stress, like something that they're excited about that scares them a little bit. Like, what is that for you? It might be, for a lot of people, that's just simply going to the gym and exercising, you know, like wondering if they're going to make the next rep, wondering if they're going to last on the next sprint. We need it. We need it as a human species. And if you have the higher capacity you have for it, the quicker it is for you to get messed up when you don't have any opportunities to feel it. I think that what I'm kind of describing too is it's kind of the paradigm for how PTSD is viewed. You know, like these people get into these really stressful situations and then they don't have that when they get home. And what happens, they end up simulating it. And our minds are so powerful. The things that we can do, that we simulate that own stress, and like they keep kind of going through this loop and things continue to trigger it over and over again. And it's like debilitating and horrible. And there's a very, very small kind of similar idea happening when you leave sports. But people that are depressed or people that are anxious, a lot of times I think they would really benefit maybe from something scary and that would make them anxious. Like when I drive to a jiu-jitsu tournament now, I get the same feeling that I did right before a baseball game would start, where I'm like, oh man, like, okay, this is it. This is it's time to perform. Right. It's time for me to let my conscious mind just kind of start to fade to the edges of awareness. It's time for me to say, like, to tell it, like, okay, you prepared me. Thank you. Now it's the body's time to go out and do its thing. Whatever thing that is.
Butterflies? Is it? What is it for you? What is it like? What's the excitement? Is it anxiety?
I get like what are my physiological symptoms of like stress? I get
for like preparing for a tournament or back in the day. You said it was similar to when you would head to a game.
Well, I think that like right before a game would start, like national anthem time in a baseball game, I'd start to feel a little bit in my stomach. I don't know about butterflies, but like this kind of heightened sense of awareness.
Right.
You start to really kind of zone in. Your heart beats a little bit faster. It's easier to grab a little bit of more tension in your body. Mm-hmm. And so you have to kind of learn how to handle that. But that's what it was for me. It was like that feeling of like, oh man. And so now it's funny because when it started out, that feeling started out as something that was negative to me. Mm-hmm. I was of this kind of stress as debilitating, mindset. But over time of being under stress, it completely flipped. So now if I'm driving to a jiu-jitsu tournament and I feel that, or it makes me happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have to feel right at home.
I feel that I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, where have you been? Like I haven't been challenging myself enough, I guess, because I missed you. I missed this feeling of again, like we said earlier, like you had in leaps and bounds when we were 18, but I missed this feeling of like striving, of like going for it, going after it. It's to me, it's the cure to my anxiety and my rumination and my depression. So that for me was the kind of the physiological gap. And then my partner at work, Darnell McDonald, talked to me a little bit about meditation. And so I started practicing because, man, again, in the absence of a lot of stress, your mind will just go. The mind wanders 50% of the time. The human mind wanders 50% of the time. And while it's wandering, it's generally negative. Mm-hmm. So what I practice doing and what we teach people how to do is we're not worried about like trying to achieve some certain feeling in meditation. And we're not using mindfulness to be like, to pretend that we're so Zen or something. We're practicing catching ourselves when our thinking starts running away from us. We're practicing having the conscious mind have a trigger to recognize like, oh, there it goes. Okay. And then non-judgmentally bring it back to the present moment and the task at hand.
I pinpoint, sir. I've been doing that for years. If there's some little thing that's bugging me, personal relate, whatever it is, I pinpoint it, I target it, I overanalyze it. Well, I analyze it, and then I ultimately, over time, it's gone. I mean, that helped me a lot with acting. I would just dissect, and I'd figure out, rather than just dwelling on, how I didn't get a certain role or why I didn't get a certain role or who did. It would take me just one night. Whereas I wish I knew that back in the day when I was playing, but it's just a completely different thing because this was something that was in my control. I felt with baseball, being that I played or striking out, whereas acting, I could have done as good as I imagined going into the audition as possible, and then lose a role because of my height or my eye color or whatever, hair color.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of them kind of has like fluctuating subjective variables, mm-hmm. right? And then the other one is you trying to hit a ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a more base thing. The baseball playing than acting is. I'm sure there's more. There's a lot more that goes on intellectually to assume a different character, whereas hitting a baseball is generally a very mindless skill if you learn how to, like I said, let that conscious voice just recede to the edge of awareness and give you a simple thing to think about. I mean, that's in the moment. That's hitting. When we back out further, we have so much information now in baseball, and sometimes guys just drown in it. But when you talk to the guys that are the best in the world, their approaches are incredibly simple to those things. And I imagine it would be similar to acting, like they just, those guys I'm sure that are great at it, they just feel it, they just feel it. And I don't know if it's believing, this is another, you're saying that you said the word confidence earlier. And I think that confidence gets too much positive attention. And I think that and Eric Barker from UCLA has written about this and done some research on it, but self-compassion is more important for all of us. I think the ability to forgive yourself when you mess up is more important than being confident, because if you can't forgive yourself when you mess up, then that's all you're thinking about the next time you go out and compete. It's learning how to, like you said, learn how to ride that kind of healthy middle and stay away from the peaks and valleys of believing your own hype and thinking and believing that you're incredible and awesome and you're never going to fail, and then B, being in that black hole down in the pit where you feel like you're worthless. Like that's, for me, that's kind of how it all ties back to itself. Man, I wish I would, was taught early on, and even in college with our coaches, and it's some people, really, take that high, being in the zone, being super confident at the plate, but rather just taking, kind of like Brandon Belt from the Giants, if he punches out or homers, you don't really know, you can't read his body language. Can't tell. But yeah, that's interesting. So I've always not, well, now I know, but I mean, the audience may want to know, what's your definition of mindfulness, and what does that mean to you? I believe in the John Kabat-Zinn definition of mindfulness, which is mindfulness means paying attention on purpose in the present moment in a particular way without judgment. So, paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And when I've broken this down before, and I kind of look at it as 4 specific things. And then there's a very general meditation practice that pairs with it. But I mean, you have to, basically what you're doing is it's an attention practice. So you're cultivating attention, you're pointing it where you want to point it, you're doing it in the present moment, and you're doing it without judgment, right? So what I'm doing, if I'm going to do a mindfulness meditation, or if I'm going to guide a mindfulness meditation, the language is pretty strict. There's not a lot of room for expansion in and out, because it's a very simple process. So what you would do for a mindfulness meditation is you would set an intention to think about one thing or focus on one thing. Point all your attention to one thing. We use the breath so often because it's automatic. We don't have to try and do it. We don't have to try and stare at something on the wall or a picture or create a picture in our head. Even if we tried to hold our breath until we passed out, we're still going to breathe. Like, we can't overcome that. So we use the breath. It's an automatic thing. I like to use 2 different elements depending on the day, but generally I do the second one. The first one is you can follow it in and all the way out with all of your focus, with your eyes closed, with your mind like a flashlight, following the breath in and out and in and out. Or I like to use the sensations of the body as it moves around my breath. Do you have a specific length of the breath? Sorry to interrupt, but do you have a specific length about how many seconds, in and out? No, your goal here is to see if you can let go and watch the body breathe. It'll do it for you. You don't have to do it. You can sit there and say, when you're breathing in, there's 2 things are happening. I'm following the sensations of my chest and my lungs, I feel like, as they expand. Mm-hmm. That's part 1 of it, I think, that you can hold on to. And part 2 of it is, when I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. And that's it. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, back and forth. Sounds super simple because it is, but that's the object of your attention. But because the human mind says 800 to 1,000 words a minute, inevitably you are going to be distracted. And that's the whole point of the exercise, is that I'm going to focus on this, but I get distracted. The meat of what we're talking about of cultivating mindfulness is recognizing when you're distracted and then consciously reorienting your attention back to where you originally intended to do it. So I sit down, I'm focusing on my breath. My mind takes off into the future. I start planning. I recognize that I'm planning. Oh, look at that. I'm okay, I'm planning. And then just gently, I escort it back. Oh, okay. Hey, bam, good. Oh, there we go. I recognized it. Okay, what was I supposed to think? What did I determine to think about? Oh, I wanted to focus on my breathing, right? So, and you go back. Every time you complete that loop, every single time, it is like a curl or a deadlift for your ability to focus and concentrate.
Interesting. So this position was not, I think it's the first position in Major League Baseball that they've had, the mental skills coordinator. Right? The Chicago Cubs, when I think it was Theo Epstein, when they came to you, that position wasn't even.
It was just me, and Darnell McDonald was the other one. We had similar style positions. We started calling them mental skills coordinator. My first year, the year we won the World Series, I was just general baseball operations. I was learning everything. So I just followed pro scouting and amateur scout. I got to see the organization, the whole framework of our organization the year we won the World Series from a front row being mentored seat. It was an incredible experience. I saw everything from the trade deadline to the draft to the championship at the end to spring training in the beginning, from the moment it started till the time that it ended. I was in January that year before spring training. I was with some of our pro scouts down in the Dominican Republic, learning about that style of work and going to see amateur players. And
the international scouting style of work, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw everything, and the best feedback that I got in all my trips was when I would go visit our affiliates or our major league team, and guys would ask me questions, or we'd catch back up and hang out. And I started realizing that I was making a really positive impact on the people that were around. I had a lot of experience in baseball. Our current team, I played against a lot of those guys or with them, so I know them on a very personal level. And I feel like they trust me now. But yeah, these are the way that our organization seems to work. Is they don't necessarily fill positions. They kind of meet people that they like and hire them, and then they just assign us to where we're going to fit best in the organization. And it's very fluid. Like, I'll have work that I'll do sometimes with research and development, for example, where we'll be talking about a catching thing and I'll ask my opinion, and I'll have work that I'll do with, and then next thing I know, I'm leading meditation, and the next thing I'm out, I'll put my baseball pants on because we have a major league player comes back to Arizona and needs to throw a bullpen. I'll throw my pants on and I'll catch him. That's my favorite thing to do nowadays is just catch the occasional bullpen. It's like it's my moving meditation that I do.
Oh man, I bet. Yeah,
I freak the kids out too, Hnilo. I freak the kids out, like the young Latin kids especially, because in instructional league, everybody's like 16, 17, 18, and they're trying to catch, and guys are throwing 95, and they're skipping balls. And like, I don't even have to think to catch anymore because I practiced it so much. So guys are skipping 94 off the AstroTurf. I'm picking it, and like and always no selling it because I didn't even, I don't even feel like I'm not even consciously doing it. My body just does it. If I get out of the way, my body's like, oh, it's over there. I got it, and I throw it back. And I look at the kids and they're just like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. I'm like, I'm not that good. I'm just not that freaked out, anymore. Yeah. Everything's much slower for me in the context of balls flying at my face, because I had so much experience with it happening. But that's the thing I miss the most. Yeah. So now I can do a lot of cool stuff now. Like we get to do this work. I get to be exposed to Joe Madden and Theo, our major league team, all the time. And then like some of these great younger players that we have and fantastic coaching that we have in the minor leagues. So like I'm always around just this super healthy culture where everyone's striving to get better all the time. It reminds me of De La Salle. It reminds me of high school. Everyone's striving to get better. Like we don't, there's no, like, you don't need to be sick to improve, or you don't need to be sick to get better. You can always be getting better all the time if you're going after it. And we do that here. And I get to learn from, I think, the best people in the world of this sport. And truthfully, I learn the most from the players. I learn the most from the players. I think that Tommy Listella has been a huge influence on me. I don't know how much you know about his story, but that guy in 2016, they said they were going to send him down. He just shut it down. And he's like, I'm a person first and a baseball player second. And I'm like, wow, just the balls to stand up to it and to give the organization I work for credit. Like, they listened, you know what I mean? They listened to him and they like helped him out instead of just, screw it. We'll put the next body in that can come in and pinch hit. And now he's kind of the leadership voice in our team. And that's, it's amazing. And that's one of his main messages is to the players, is like, hey, we're people first and we're baseball players second. So let's make sure that we nail our off the field stuff so that we're happy all the time. And then let's show up and kick ass and play baseball together, because that's what we like. We like doing it. We get paid well to do it. So being around all those guys, man, I learned so much.
I remember that situation. That's when he got sent down, right? Like, and he felt that he was doing pretty well in the big leagues, and he got sent down, and he kind of like, did he not accept his demotion or something like that? I forget exactly what happened.
No, dude, he just went home. He's like, I'm not going. He just got on a plane and flew. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough time. I can remember, like it put a lot of stress on, the people in our front office, I think, and this is what I've noticed about the Cubs and why it was the only place that I wanted to work after being a player if I was going to stay in baseball. The main thing I noticed about our front office was like their honesty and transparency. So like there's no BS that goes on. It's like my job, a lot of our jobs is a support to these players. We're trying to give them every possible resource and as much support as we can so that they're successful, because if they win, we all win. Like that's the game we're playing here. But at the same time, these guys are honest and they actually care about the people, which is very different than just a lot of the rest of baseball where it's the players are looked at like meat or cattle or racehorses, and pick them up, spit them, put them in the big leagues, have them throw 96 for 2 years, blow their arm out, get them out of here. Like we don't do the same things here. And that was a big burden, I think, on Theo and Jed and the people at the top of the front office. Handling it, because as smart thinking people, like they understood. Oh, I understand where you're coming from. I understand why you feel this way. Nobody's ever challenged it like this before, but let's come up with a solution. And he came back and did incredible for us last year. And I think he's hitting 330 off the bench right now for us this year. And he was 9 for 21 or something pinch hitting this year. Dude. It's incredible. Incredible. He's facing every at bat this guy has. These guys are throwing 98 with a 92 mile an hour slider because pitchers are from the future. And he's just getting hits and just taking pro at bats all the time. One shot, never see the guy again until next year. And he does. It's really, really, really impressive. But him being around and him feeling like he has that platform, that comes from that. And again, people before players. Joe Madden talks about be present, not perfect. Right? What does that mean? And I think this applies off the field and to anybody in life too. It's like when you get hired for a job, or you show up to work, or you go, I don't know, to the gym. It's not about you being perfect and like being something that you're not. Like what's the Dolly quote? Don't strive for perfection because you'll never attain it. It's not about you being perfect. It's about you being there. It's about you being where your feet are and doing your job the best that you can in the moment. Like, and he tells that to our players when they come up. He's like, I don't need you to be anything else than who you are right now, and go let your body go react out on this field right now. We'll put you in the right position. Go do it.
Joe Madden you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just the culture in that clubhouse is unbelievable. I've been going there for 3 or 4 years now. I think I started when you were there in 2014, and that was Rick Renteria, I believe, was there. He left. That's another great guy, by the way, Ricky. Yeah, he seemed like a really good guy.
Great guy, yeah.
And was Epstein the GM when Renteria came in there? Or when Epstein came in? Is that when Madden?
Theo came in 2011. They started rebuilding the Cubs.
Oh, okay.
When why am I drawing a blank? I can say when the Ricketts family bought the team, they hired Theo. Theo and Jed came. Jed left San Diego. Theo was in the private sector after Boston, and they came in, and the Ricketts family has done just incredible work in Chicago. I mean, they've renovated the stadium, they've renovated the locker room, they've built hotels, they've cleaned up the surrounding Wrigleyville area. They own all the stuff around the field. They've spared no expense for the players. I mean, if you go into our locker room in the big leagues, you've got float tank, you've got cryo sauna, infrared sauna, hot and cold immersion therapy, like you name it. Or if a player wants it, we've got $60,000 postural machines that I don't even know how to work the machine. When I look at it, you got to stand on it and it gives you some reading. It's very similar to going to the kind of like a bit more, there's a bit more, we need a bit more length of research behind things, but it's really similar to going to like Bulletproof Labs or something where you walk in, you're like, what's this thing? And they've done a bunch of research on it, and we heard this thing's the best, so we bought it and we're going to use it. The food's incredible. We cater whole foods into every level of the minor leagues. We make sure in the major leagues that everything is like ethically sourced food wise. So grass-fed, grass-finished beef. The nutritionist makes bulletproof coffees for guys, MCT oil, butter, collagen, protein, green smoothies. Like we go for all real food before any sort of supplements. I think probably the most commonly used supplement at the major league level would be like like minerals or electrolytes. So people don't get dehydrated, but there's not a lot of going outside of just the food that nature provides. And I mean, they'll even kill a pig sometimes, roast it, like, and bring it to the field that day, like the food is, it's fantastic. I mean, and it's just it's like the rest of it, there's no expenses spared in the pursuit of greatness in Chicago right now. And so it's really fun to just be able to ride this wave and be a part of it.
And so that kind of is a little bit of a segue into, I mean, when I, excuse me, just 2 nights ago at the gym that I work out in, there are a couple guys that openly admitted that they use steroids in the sauna to me, and how they do it. And I get asked that all the time, and I've never used anything outside of creatine, just because I'm too scared of the side effects. I mean, maybe down the road, if
I'm a little older,
maybe like down the road, seriously, if I would possibly explore testosterone, but I don't know. Even that, I'm just scared with the side effects, especially with steroids and all of that. But just in your opinion, in the game, was that pretty prevalent? And like, has it changed? You're seeing guys like Robinson Cano right now. He's in some, man, that's crazy. I mean,
pretty prevalent. I mean, I never saw it, did I see it? I don't think I've ever seen, no, I've seen it once, but I've seen it once, but it was not in the context of baseball. But like, yeah, I never saw it. I always expected that something was going on with certain people, I guess I did see it because I was Yasmani Grandal's teammate when he was putting this weird deodorant on, and we kept asking him, like, what are you doing? Why are you rubbing that all over your like sides and stuff? And he's like, oh, no big deal. It's my deodorant. And I'm like, something's weird here. Yeah. And he got popped that year. And Robinson Cano, I mean, I was with him in spring training in 2015 with the Mariners, and super nice guy. I mean, most people are, honestly. But Robbie, like, I didn't see him put in too much effort into like weight room or anything, but he was just jacked. So hearing that he tested positive for a masking agent, it's gotten to the point where it's just not surprising anymore. And I also think that, baseball sends very mixed signals to people about how they feel about it. If you think about, Barry Bonds, greatest hitter of all time, never been caught, not in the Hall of Fame. Alex Rodriguez caught multiple times and lies about it. We put him on Sunday Night Baseball and we have him cover the World Series on the field talking, like we give him this job. Bartolo Colon leaves baseball for 2 years, takes every illegal substance known to man, comes back, reinvigorates his career, plays for a couple years in Oakland, gets caught again, gets suspended for a year, gets a contract right off of that. And he's like, and Major League Baseball, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook's like GIF, like everybody loves Bartolo Colon, right? Oh, we love Bartolo Colon, but we're mad at Robinson Cano, like they're so two-faced. The whole thing is it's not clear how we're going to feel about it, because we say that this is something that you can't do, and then our culture celebrates plenty of people that do it. So I don't understand looking back on it now, like what do we do to disincentivize it? Because if I'm going to give you a contract, the next, like Melky Cabrera, remember when he got the Giants to the World Series in 2012? He hit like 360. He was running 3/8 to first base, like way faster than he's ever been in his life, just juiced out of his mind. He goes and he's the MVP of the All-Star game, so the Giants get home field advantage. And then he tests positive and he gets suspended for 50 games, and then he gets like a 2-year deal for $20 million the next year. And so you see stuff like that and you go, what is the point here? Why don't you just either make it all legal or just ban everybody for life that gets caught? Real simple, right? It's either legal or it's not, and there's no policy. I mean, truthfully, if you've seen like Bigger, Stronger, Faster, if you do your own research about steroids, like 0 to 1 person dies a year from steroids, and they're usually somebody that's mixing it with something else. And that whole Lyle Alzado steroid thing, that's BS. There was so many other drugs going into that guy's system. But I think they're healthy enough. I think it's more of it's like a moral issue in baseball. But in real life, man, yeah, I know lots of people now that have gotten older that are super advocates of it, like real low doses, keeping them healthy, keeping them happy, keeping them a little bit leaner than maybe they would be. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't explored it too deeply myself yet. But yeah, like, should Robinson Cano be concerned? No, man, because Alex Rodriguez is doing baseball games on ESPN on Sunday night. So I don't some weight they've never done before, like, and get there, because your body doesn't forget. Even if the steroids go away, like, you just increased your capacity. You pick up 600 pounds or something. Now you'll always have it in you if you can get back to that same level of strength. So, do that, get suspended for 80 games, and then come back the next year and get to the big leagues and sign a contract. I mean, to me, that's what are we really doing to stop doing these things? And are we really being honest about the risks of doing it? And are we really being honest about the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s because all these people are so, I look at it like ambition. All these people are so competitive. Mm-hmm. Like Bob Gibson said it. He was like, if I knew about steroids, I would have been injecting them immediately, he says, because he was so competitive. He wanted to kill everybody that he played against. He would look for any possible edge, from spitting on the ball, putting pine tar on it, to shooting himself up. I'm sure he would have gone totally after it. And do you want to have that be the model where it's unsafe and people just do whatever they want, or do you want to have a model where you are safe? And right now, the current way that it works is, it's just, who knows? Still, we don't know. He'll come back. Robinson Cano will come back next year, and nobody will even remember.
I hope that happens. They're saying a lot of things right now as far as jeopardizing his Hall of Fame chances and things like that. It's tough.
Well, I feel like you're out at this point. Like, if you don't put Bonds in, and they haven't voted Bonds in, even though he's never failed a drug test. You don't put Bonds in, like, that's literally the best hitter that ever lived. He's not in the Hall of Fame. And the guy with the most hits of all time, although he signed his own death warrant on that one, Pete Rose, he signed the paperwork that said, I will pull myself out of being eligible for any of that. Like, he signed it himself. Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, he's got the most hits in the history of baseball. The guy with the most home runs in the history of baseball is a cheater. Like, when are people going to figure out that cheating is like the sixth tool of baseball? It's been there. It's been like from Trevor Bauer talking about the Astros putting extra pine tar on the ball so that the spin rate gets higher,
right?
To knuckleball pitchers spitting on the baseball, guys throwing spitballs, to me scuffing the ball for Jason Marquis, to Sammy Sosa corking his bat, to the steroids and the amphetamines and the greenies. Like, baseball has a long kind of bad history of always cheating. Always cheating. So are people still using steroids now? Do you think there's a PED problem now? You know what I'm going to say to that? I've never seen it, and I don't see it with obviously with our players, I don't see any of that kind of stuff, but wouldn't be surprised if there's other people out there, that are cheating, because all I got to do is look at the last 100 years and see that they've been doing it the whole time. So I'm sure they're doing it now. Whoever it is, I don't know.
So the thing I would do, caffeine, I guess, back in the day, just with, I would drink Coke or coffee before, and then creatine. That was as much as I've done. I definitely wasn't. You weren't
just like downing Rip Fuel, ephedrine pills.
No, I did try ephedra in junior college, and then I stopped it because I just felt really, really jittery. That beta from
yeah, no, I had
that stuff actually, but yeah, I did try a little bit of that in junior college, but I stopped because I was a mess at the plate.
It's too much.
Yeah. We had a question from Jackie here about time management. She's a professional. She's actually an athletic trainer, and she has a family, and she just feels like there's not enough hours in the day, and she wanted to know your advice on time management and what you do to schedule out. And I actually want to hear your advice on this as well. The biggest thing right now these days is it's like cool to say how busy you are. And I had someone call me out on it at a conference I went to recently. He's like, man, you need to get better at planning. You need to get better at scheduling. And I'm like, oh man, that actually makes a really good point, because I'm not as organized with my scheduling, and I need to get better at that. And I'm just wondering how you seem very organized, and you have a family yourself. I don't, but I'm running a business and things like that. So you're working as well, running a business also, as the time, a job that demands a lot of time. So what do you do for time management?
Unfortunately, my wife Megan is a great scheduler. Takes care of all the stuff like that around our house and our family. So I get updated on what we're going to do. But I think that I'm not busy, and I'll tell you why I'm not busy. It's because that's the life that I'm trying to live. Like when I stopped playing, and I kind of, like I said, I got to be a kid for so long, and I thought about, I actually did the Jordan Peterson writing program, Future Authoring, where you're like a bunch of, I really, honestly, really valuable thing to do for anybody. Say what you want to say about his politics, or if some people think he's alt-right, some people don't. Yeah. Some people don't like him though, and that's okay. Everybody can have their own opinion. I don't care about anybody else's opinion. I loved his program. So I did his program. I wrote, asked me a bunch of questions, and I started to kind of figure out what I wanted like my days to be able to look like. Right. And I think that's where we make a lot of mistakes. And I'm sorry, this is not going to directly address time management, but why are we busy? We're generally busy, I think, because we're trying to push happiness over the horizon. We're going to go, listen, if I do all this work now, then I'm going to get this outcome. Then I'm going to feel awesome. Then I'm going to feel awesome. And if we live in that kind of if-then philosophy, we never reach then, because once then hits, the next if-then pops up. So what I did is I started looking at what do I want out of life? Like, what do I want to be able to do? And I'm like, okay, I love doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right now. So I want to be able to do that as much as possible. Okay. I have 2 young daughters that I want to see as much as I possibly can. So in taking the job that I took, I travel, 12 to 15 days a month for 5 months. And so that's obviously scheduled. But my other days here, I moved closer to our spring training complex, so I can go into work and be done with work at 1:00 here, because that's when the extended spring training game ends, and that's when our Phoenix games will end. And I can, at the same time, I kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone when I can go there, because I can take my philosophy and give it to kids when they're 17 and 18 years old, so they grow up with it. They grow up with all of my experience because I'm around them, right? And then I see those kids as the years progress forward. I see them in A-ball and in AA, or I see guys like CJ Edwards from A-ball all the way to the big leagues, and now is like a friend of mine. But I've known him since he was a kid, a kid. And so because of that, I wrote out what is my ideal day? I wake up, I do a workout, wake up, do my meditation, do a workout, eat breakfast with my kids. They go to school. I go to jiu-jitsu. I get done with jiu-jitsu. I go to the field. I spend a couple hours over there making sure everybody's okay. And then I have the afternoons to pursue my own personal interests if I want, or watch my kids do their gymnastics practice, or go to my kids' jiu-jitsu class. That's the stuff that makes me happy. So that's the shit I'm going to do, because I am not going to become some slave to this system where I feel like I got to work 58 hours a day and 24 hours to make enough money to get some stuff that's not going to make me happy, and I'm going to forget about in 2 weeks anyway. That's how I choose to live my life. I choose to live my life in the present moment. I think that a lot of the mindfulness stuff has really kind of pushed me back there, because that's part of that definition is in the present moment. And obviously playing baseball and being an athlete for so long, that'll put you in the present moment. And doing jiu-jitsu, when someone's trying to strangle you, you're not thinking about your next appointment. You're not thinking about what happened last week. You're thinking about how the hell you're going to get this guy's hands off your neck, or this guy's sinking in a choke. How are you going to get away from it? You're forced into the present moment. And that's where our happiness lives, in my opinion. Fear, anxiety, that all lives in the future. It's not real. Rumination and depression, that's all about something that already happened. That's also not real. Tomorrow, like the comedian Bo Burnham says, tomorrow is a relative term. It doesn't exist without today. So I'm about what's happening now and what makes me happy right now in this moment. And so I choose to try to manage my time in a way where I get as many opportunities to experience these things that I want to experience. And in that way, I would say, yeah, I'm not particularly busy. Because that's what I want my life to be like. And I would rather pursue that with all of my drive and motivation and effort. And, how can I work? How can I Tim Ferriss it a little bit? How can I work as little as possible and produce the greatest results, and then go out there and pursue the things that I want to pursue? That's my approach to time management. Is how much of that stuff do you actually not have to do? Right. That's the first place to look. What can you strip away? Like what is a burden on you that you actually don't need if you really reevaluate it? What can you sacrifice to get something that you actually want, which is our time? It's the most valuable thing that we have is our time. And if you feel like you're just stacked appointment to appointment to appointment to appointment, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's how, we human beings, as apes, I don't know if that's how we're supposed to live. So damn scheduled. So probably a completely different answer than anybody thought they were going to hear. But again, just like I can't look at life the same way as everybody else.
I really admire that, though. I mean, it's focusing on what's important, and you live that daily, and you explain that really clearly. And I definitely am going to take a piece of that and run with it, because a lot of us get caught up. I'm guilty of it, so I'm just going to talk about myself. It's just see, I love what I do, though. I'm obsessed with what I do, and I cannot wait to wake up and do what I do. And it's all big. I caught myself on in a conversation recently, and I was trying so hard not to talk about work, but it's when someone asks what I did today or what you did, what's new, and it's all about my work and my business, and I love what everything that's going on and what I do. So it's hard for me. It's not all that I love to do. I love music. I love food. I love working out. I love so many different things. But really what makes me happy is being around my family. Being around my family, success with the business, knowing where it came from. They're neck and neck, but it's definitely my family. So, I'm going to take
well, you're already doing it. You're already doing the same thing. You're already self-aware. And another part of practicing mindfulness is developing the self-awareness to figure out what you actually like to do, not what you think you like to do, not what you grew up doing because somebody else told you to do it. What the hell do you actually like to do? You figured that out. You've gone through so many different jobs and acted and played baseball at all those different places, pictures and then accidents, so much life experience. And it led to the birth of your children, which are named Night Cream and Clay Mask and moisturizer and presents, right? Those are your kids. So you wake up every day excited about what you're going to do the same way that I do. And I think that's you hit on it. That's the whole point. The whole point is not to meet some sort of societal expectations if you don't have to, if you don't have to get stuck. If you don't have to get stuck with some massive mortgage, right? That you're never going to pay off, that you got to plug in and work the 9 to 5. There's places you can live where you don't have to deal with that. Right? There's things that you can do. There's less, you need less stuff than you think you do generally too. We've spent so much time moving from California to Arizona, and I've gone through, my wife and I, we've gone through every single thing that we have. Everything, right? 2 kids, different size clothes, so much baseball equipment that I could have had a team and a half with all the equipment I had. I got hundreds of pairs of batting gloves. But we went through everything and we got rid of, 75% of it. We realized, we looked at it and we're like, there's no reason to have this. I have 9 black sweatshirts,
yeah.
What happened here? What waste at first? But then just, again, getting back to what's happening now and learning lessons from that experience, looking at 9 black sweatshirts and going I don't need this. Thank you for teaching me that I don't need this. Not, I'm such an idiot, I'm going to judge myself for it. No, what can I actually learn from that? I can learn this. Okay, I'm out to the next thing. I'm back. I'm pointing my light back in the direction of something's going to make me happy. I'm not going to sit here and fester on this idea that I'm an idiot or I'm wasteful. Because I was, sure, but I'm not anymore because I just recognized it. And that's, again, that's mindfulness. That's understanding that's understanding, being focused on the task at hand, being in the present moment, and doing it without judgment. I briefly touched on it earlier, but that's the final part to all of this, right? Because when you're sitting down in meditation and you're focusing on the sensations of your breathing and you get distracted and you bring it back, we as people have a tendency to do stuff like, I'll be sitting there and I'll notice that I have a sensation on my face that I really want to scratch. And then I'll be like, no, I'm not scratching it and that's my ego right away getting involved. And then I'll judge myself for having an ego. I'll be like, man, really? Like, you just scratch your face. But you can see how manipulative our own mind is to, like, for ourselves, like I'll judge myself for having a judgment in meditation and then judge that part of it again, instead of just letting it go. I'm sitting there meditating and I have a judgment about, let's say I'm listening to a guided meditation and I don't like how it's going, right? I don't like what the person's saying. And I'm having a judgment about that. And then I go, oh man, damn it. I'm judging somebody else. Like I shouldn't do that. And I just judge myself. And it just goes on and 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 on. And the whole point of the meditation is to go judge, wait, time out. It's okay. I can disagree with how this guy structures his meditation, but I'm playing Simon Says, which is I'm going to listen to what they have to say. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to it non-judgmentally. What was the instruction? What was in front of me right now? Not where am I going this way or that way, future or past. What's happening right now? That's where my attention needs to be.
Can you give me an example, without naming names, obviously, of a profound experience you've had with a player or a person that through your teachings that really sticks out in your head right now?
Like something that I learned from somebody else?
No, that they learned from you, or that you learned from you either.
Profound experience. I mean, I definitely had them. These would be different, but I definitely had them in. The more I caught, the more I kind of know. It's weird. It's really weird. A lot of times I'll be watching a baseball game and I'll be able to tell you what's going to happen. Just because I've seen the game so many times, there was somebody sent it to me this year on Twitter, but it was an article about Luke Gregerson when we were at the Padres together, and about a mound meeting that I had and I actually remember 2 mound meetings like this, where 3, I'll give you 3 of them, but there more of them are piling up as I go back into that place, right? But this one was, I went out to the mound. I'm like, I'm going to throw a slider down and away. It was a left-handed hitter. He's going to hit it back to the mound. Okay. We're going to just make sure that you check the guy at third because they're super aggressive. So he's going to tap it back to you. You check him at third base, throw it to first. We'll get the out at first. Yonder will throw it home. We'll turn a double play. And the pitcher looked at me and he was like, seriously? And exactly, ran back behind home plate, scooted over, ball got tapped back to the mound. He checked the guy, threw it to first base. The guy came home. We threw the ball home. We tagged the guy out. We turned a double play. And he was like, how does that happen? But I'm like, I've just seen it too many times, I've had so much experience doing that. Or same thing in the last series ever at Shea Stadium. Chris Volstad was a rookie. He was pitching, and David Wright, who was the superstar at the time with the Mets, was hitting. There was runner on first base, and he threw ball 1, ball 2. And I remember we ran out to the mound. I ran out to the mound. I was a rookie too, and I'm like Volstad, dude, turn around and look at this. And we just looked at Shea Stadium, right? There's 50,000 people in the stadium, and then there's another 50,000 in the parking lot, because if the Mets lost 2 out of the last 3 and the Brewers won enough games, they're going to blow Shea Stadium up afterwards. I ended up catching the last game in the history of Shea Stadium, and we won that game. But this was the first game of the series. And David Wright came up, and there was a runner on first, and we were kind of nervous, but we stopped, and I'm like, dude, how cool is this? You and I were you were in AA, and I was in AAA for the last 5 years, and now we're standing here on this mound and on this ridiculous field where the Beatles played. Okay, where the Beatles played. We're standing their last concert. We're standing here on the middle of that field. This is crazy. This is awesome. I go, throw me a sinker in. He's going to hit a grounder to third. We'll turn a double play and we'll get out of here. And exactly like the cue of sinker in, bam, grounder to third, ball turns. And I think that brings up the biggest impact that I've made on people in baseball while I was playing and after playing was helping them reframe what stress means. We were talking about looking for it earlier, but I caught a lot of major league debuts, and what you see in those moments is a shell-shocked person, right? it's like fifth deck shock. You get out on the mound, they look up, and like the biggest crowd that they've ever seen looking at them is maybe 12,000 people, or maybe they were lucky enough to go to the College World Series and they saw 28,000 or something, But now you're on Wrigley Field. Like Babe Ruth played here. It's been around for 100 and something years. It's a really loud and crazy environment. Or you're at AT&T Park and it's sold out, and the bass is thumping in center field, and it shakes your shoes, And you got to go out now and execute something that's really difficult. That's exactly what I brought to the mat. I go, hey, you feel those feelings? Like you feel your heart racing, or your stomach kind of turning over, you feel your palms getting sweaty. You know what that signal is? And they're like, what? I'm like, that's the signal that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Like, this is why we live life, man. Like, this is why we do it. So don't forget about it. Just fuck it. Like, embrace this feeling. We don't get it very often. And I can tell you that I'm happy that I embraced it while I was playing, because it became very hard for me to find it right away after I left. But that's the biggest impact I made. It was kind of helping people look at those really stressful situations in a performance context as where they were supposed to be, as opposed to something that they couldn't do.
And you told me that when you were playing years ago. I would embrace my anxiety and turn it into energy. It really in the audition room and just like certain situations, meetings, things like that. I would turn that into that exact. I remember you saying you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Those goosebumps.
Why we do it?
Those butterflies.
Why we do it? Yes.
I turned it right into energy, and it really is. I embrace it now. Years down the road, I think of that all the time. Man, thank you so much for telling me that. I think it was 2013, 2014, something like that, 12, somewhere around there. But yeah, I'll never forget that.
Was catching a lot of young guys at that time, so it was prominent. It was a prominent thing in my life. So
we, we covered so much. You're, the coolest thing about you, John, to me is I've just always quietly thought to myself that your biggest impact is going to be off the field, and you're doing that, man. You're helping so many people. It's like you said with C.J. Edwards. You watch someone who's a kid and look at him now, growing into a successful player, but also you probably watch him mature to a point that nobody else has outside of maybe his family or maybe some of his teammates that have played with him at that early level to where he is now. But that's got to be so fulfilling to you. Just me as an outsider, kind of just getting your stories every now and then. It doesn't surprise me at all, man. You're changing lives, and it's got to. I just have to ask: do you ever see yourself in the dugout? Do you ever see yourself?
I go back into the dugout when I go to minor league games. I sit in the dugout, and it's a there's a different rhythm to a dugout than anywhere else in life, and I enjoy those experiences. But I think that I've thought a lot about it after I was done playing. I had some job offers to go manage different teams in the minor leagues.
Wow.
And I spent too much time playing. I enjoy being able to learn things that relate to baseball, but that also relate to life, and pass those on to like a bigger population of people. I think I enjoy that more than trying to go through the politics of working my way into a major league dugout as a manager, because I don't think that I don't want to say the job wouldn't be challenging, because there's a whole lot of other challenging things that you have to deal with, handling the media, giving people bad news. I don't like to do either of those things really. The media is not the difficult for me, but the bad news part is. And, maybe if the offer was right, I would do something like that, but no, I like doing what I'm doing right now, and that you have to think about the entire lifestyle of that. That's relocation to a new city. That's not seeing your family half the year. That's really doing a lot of stuff that when I sat down and spent some time really focusing on how I wanted my life to be, like those things were not in it. That was not. So it would have to be a perfect storm. The right place. Could I do it? Yeah, I absolutely could do it. And I would love doing that. That stuff's so fun. It's baseball, man. It's like Joe Madden says, you have to understand the simplicity of it. You know, I do because I spent so much time practicing, thinking, and doing that I could slide right into that role, and I think I could do well. But
I'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear you and Madden talk baseball, man.
yeah, he's something else, man. He's something else. He's every time I talk to that guy, I hear something where I'm like, I didn't think about it like that. Like that's unbelievable. Again, you know,
Really?
he got me with another one. Yeah, he's really thoughtful, really intelligent. I think his greatest skill is knowing how to get out of the way. And that's what, if you think about it, if you relate that to a baseball player, that's the greatest mental skill of all, is knowing how to get out of the way yourself. And Joe does a good job of doing that with the team.
That's huge. Well, Bake, man, I thank you so much for joining me. I got to come out there and visit you.
Yeah, come see the new place, man.
Yeah, no, I really have to. And I'm sure people are going to have certain questions here as we're going to keep this posted. You're more than welcome, obviously, to share it on your wall as well. But love you, brother, and I'm so happy for you. And
thank you, bud. Love you too, man.
And thanks so much for joining me on this. This is really educational for me. I'm sure people are going to get a lot of really beneficial tidbits from this as well. But man, I'm never surprised with the stuff that I learned from you. So thank you so much, man. And thanks for joining me on this. I can't wait to see you soon out in Arizona. I'll come out there.
All right, bud. I miss you, man. Good to see you.
You too, brother. See you.